everyone. If we could begin, that would be really good. Thank you, everyone. And we'll start with the karakia. Good morning, Tami.
This is the first time ever I've actually done a karakia with her. Under 3 years, and all the time I've been on the
It's her fault.
I'll wear it, because I want to celebrate with you. And also I want to celebrate with Elvis and some USA that is sitting in the background. This is Aotearoa, our mountain, Ritual Mountain, our river, Ritual River, our people, Ritual people, in Africa. E te atua kahara o koe nei mā te whakairi ngā te koro ki whakitara o te whare. Tā dūru matatu hoki, te hore tamari o te whakapapapau namu te moana te tere te kāre i rohi i nui te tangata e hui tahi nei. Te manu kāhui ngā mena mema o te kaurihira, e nini atu te rātou hoki. Ngā mema o te hāpori, e whakapapapa o te kaupapa mo te wā, te ni te miri atu te koutou. O reira e tātua koe nei mātou e whakawhetai. Ka pāmai te aroha e nui, te tihi me te mo tēnei wāhanga te tau pai mārere. Amen.
Thank you so much, Tame. And thank you. Thanks, Tame. And thank you so much for everything that you do throughout the year. We wish you a warm and happy holiday also with your family. So, good morning, everyone. We'll get into the...
It just looks so funny, Paula, with your hat here.
It looks, my hair's so fluffy, it looks like I've got ears. See? And for the record, this idea was not mine, but I like to be a participator. Good morning, everyone. Well, I think, are there any apologies?
Yes, Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Wilson's an apology. Somebody move that that be accepted. Oh, I'll move. Moko seconds. Thank you very much. The confirmation of the agenda is as confirmed. Also move. Deputy Mayor Angela will second. All in favour? Aye. Okay, so it brings us to the confirmation of the open minutes, which should be fairly straightforward. Oh, no, I lie. I go back. We have public forum. So I welcome the participators in the public forum. We have Elia Huggan and Hannah Huggan speaking to item 13. Yes? First up. Thank you. Good morning, ladies.
Ki te mea tuatahi, e mihi ana ki a koutou I tēnei rā. Meri kirihi meke, kua tata te haranei, kei ko tūmanako Māua, kia whakaora, koe koutou mō te tau nui kei mua. Kua mutu taku kōrero, ka kōrero ia taku tōku tuakana. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Ko Eli Purewa Huggan tōku ingoa, and I'm here today to both give Hannah a well-deserved break and to show you that there are many others here to represent the Pack the Chambers Ropu and further Climate Action Hub kaupapa. Again, to reiterate what Pack the Chambers is, it is simply a group of Kirikiriroa citizens who will be taking turns to show up to every ordinary council meeting to remind you of the obligations set out by this council and the mandate for transformative action in the midst of the climate crisis. Our kaupapa is to repeat time and time again of the opportunity in front of us to heal our relationship with Te Taiao, an opportunity for us to reimagine what our future can be like so that it is one worth leaving for our children. We will repeat that you are in a position to bring forth a future where nature is protected and people are put before profit. We will be here to remind you that we must do everything because we cannot lose the environment that we depend upon. You may also have noticed that there are some people today over with the Pack the Chambers Rōpū who are unable to join us. These cutouts are to represent the people in the community who are not able to be here but still rely on you and your leadership. The parents working to feed their kids, the students trying to focus on their future, and every member of the community who cannot afford to be here. We ask that you think what is best for the community, even if we are not there. Mō te kaupapa o te rānei, we are also here to address the need for a climate-targeted rate. As part of this Council's formal and public commitment to put climate change considerations at the heart of decision-making in accordance with the Developing Climate Plan, redirecting capital towards sustainability outcomes is critical to your civic leadership and achieving better well-being for the City of Hamilton. We support a climate-targeted rate already adopted by other councils to ensure that funds from this rate, in partnership with other funding, is fundamental to ensuring improved outcomes for Hamiltonians and secures our safety. Secondly, we support a climate-targeted rate in acknowledging the great work of your staff who have overcome challenges with tenacity and resilience to deliver programs that make a difference. To build on our current momentum, support their advocacy for progress and change, and establish programs that deliver prosperity, these staff require dependable, ongoing funding. Finally, in addition to taking strong action on climate change, including a climate-targeted rate would demonstrate a commitment to long-term financial prudence, in which spending now means we don't have to spend more later. In adopting the climate-targeted rate, we urge you to consider that this rate ensures dedicated funding for tangata whenua-led initiatives and to not delay this package so we can start seeing a difference sooner. Passing a climate action targeted rate would demonstrate that the work of this Council on climate action can be more than empty words. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you. And of course, we do allow for a few quick questions, but I think it was straightforward, so we'll just move on to the next public speaker, if we may. Liam, are you speaking with us today? Cool.
I'll make this quick, but I just want to recap on last meeting's agenda. I spoke about the app and you guys emailing us about what happens when we report a problem. And over the 1 month, I've done some more research, and I think it was one of your guys' posts about what do you like and not like about the post. We saw some comments saying, I would actually like to see what actually happens, and an email or a message to me saying this is what happens and fast, because some of those issues don't get handled for months, if not years, be fair, which is not really good. Yeah, that's all I really want to speak about, but everyone have a good Christmas, have a good break. I know you probably need it after the elections, but just keep that in mind, and maybe at the disability opening meeting we talked about having a public committee, which I think Anna was suggesting having a youth committee maybe. Don't mark my words. But maybe just a public committee as I suggested last month. But maybe just handling the public more and more so we can make Hamilton a better place. Not that it's not. Thank you.
Thanks, Liam. Thank you very much. And it's a good reminder that we always want to consistently and continuously improve our business. So thank you.
Any questions?
No, none today. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you who take the time to come into council, and that includes our visitors from Vermont today. Bill and Marsha Cox. Thank you for dropping in from the United States to see how we roll. We appreciate that. Hopefully we can make it an interesting meeting for as long as you are here with us. Thank you, everyone. We will now go to the open minutes, to confirm the minutes of the meeting, excuse me, on the 17th of November. Any questions, matters arising? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been picked up, page 8, point number 2 there, resolve. You had picked down, I didn't even want to say it out loud.
Okay, cool. Got that, Amy? Thank you. Okie doke, thank you very much. I also move that the item 5, that the unconfirmed minutes be confirmed. Also move. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Van Oosten, all in favour? Aye. Opposed, carried. That brings me to my chair's report, which is a verbal one because we've been exceptionally busy. And I just want to start by saying, it's been an exceptionally big year for us all. The pace of change, plus the elections, of course. This year we've said farewell to some pretty wonderful colleagues, and we've welcomed a new wonderful team as well. And I feel very optimistic that working as a team together with the people around this table, we're going to have a fantastic new year. We did, as I say, noting that the change in local government was the fastest I've ever seen. There was so much coming at us. We had to flex and adapt and respond in lightning speed. I just want to say a big thank you to the staff for all the work that you've done, especially in those areas of reform that have been coming thick and fast. But we also had a good year because we got stuff done, and I won't go into a lot of examples on that, but there's lots of really good things doing. One of my favourites, of course, will be the new precinct of the zoo. But there's lots of other things. We've got a bridge that now actually spans the river to Peacock. We've got a number of roading projects. We've got some environmental projects underway and completed. We did a lot, and we actually were very successful as a council in attracting government funding most recently. So we've had an early Christmas present with some funding to help us on the way for next year, which when we're all refreshed after a Christmas break, we'll get into thinking how we deliver upon that. So thank you to the staff, thank you to you as elected members, those past and present, for the work that you have done to set us up for this success. Do go away and have a beautiful holiday. I think I've asked everyone around the place, staff and anyone else I bump into, and everyone's feeling the same way this year, that somehow it's been a long haul and people need a break. So I hope that you do take the time to have a slower pace of life and enjoy your friends and family. Keep safe. Please keep safe. And this is what I would like to say to anybody who's listening online. Please keep safe. Be kind to each other, because Christmas is a bit of a stressful time on occasions for people. So let's take care on the roads. Take care in the water, whether it's a lake, a river or a beach. And keep each other safe out there and have a fantastic holiday. And just a shout out, because we do have police in the room today. We're thinking of you over the busy Christmas period. We really do respect and admire what the police do. And as we wind down, we know you don't. So we just want to put that on record too. So that's it. Meri Kirimehiti. Didn't say that right.
Do it again.
Yeah, Meri Kirimeti. Kirihimeti. Meri Kirihimeti. Akua na harare. Happy Christmas and holidays. Lovely holidays to you all. Any questions? No. Brilliant. That's how we like it. Okay, we'll go to item 7, recommendations from the strategic. Oh, did we not move and second it? Who? Thank you. Mover? Thank you, Councillor Thompson, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Angela Leary. All in favour? Aye. Thank you. All right, now we will move to the recommendations from the Strategic Risk and Assurance Committee on page 13 of the agenda. Who's speaking to this, if anything? Hi, Karen.
Right, hopefully you can all hear me now. Look, first of all, before I start, I'll just ask you all to refresh your Diligent, because Diligent Pack, there were some late papers arriving there this morning. So it has been quite a fraught process this year, getting to a position where we're happy to recommend the annual report for the year ended 30th of June 22, and the associated letters of representation. So in this morning's pack, you'll see fresh letters of representation supporting the annual report, as well as the summary annual report, and the annual report itself. Since the annual report that the committee considered yesterday, there have been 2 changes to the disclosures recommended by Audit New Zealand yesterday evening. And sorry, I don't actually have those note numbers in front of me. I think it was, is it 36 and 37 and 39 disclosures. So hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at those. I can confirm that now Audit New Zealand have provided verbal clearance, and they'll be in a position to sign the audit report once or if Council adopt the annual report. The audit opinion is a unqualified standard opinion, except that it has an emphasis of matter relating to the Three Waters matter, and that's a sector-wide emphasis of matter. It's not specific to this council, but because of that emphasis of matter in the audit report, the matter will be referred by the OAG through to Parliament as they're required to do. The letters of representation are standard except for 3 items. They relate to the Three Waters, which I've already alluded to, acknowledging that the subsidiary audits have not yet been completed, as was the case last year, and there are 2 uncorrected misstatements. So they relate to a prior year adjustment with regards to change in accounting treatment for software as a service costs, which the accounting treatment has been changed this year, but the comparatives have not been changed. And there was one error found in when the auditors were testing the information in the statement of service performance that related to a building consent measure. Both of those items are considered immaterial. So I just noted in the letter of representation, but haven't been changed in the accounts. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank Tracy and her team for preparing this set of accounts. The lateness and the late amendment should be no reflection on Tracy and her team, and they were wholeheartedly the result of resourcing issues within Audit New Zealand. I have full confidence in Tracy and her team. They've done a fantastic job in the annual report, as well as serving the committee throughout the year. So thank you very much for that. And I would also just note that the last-minute nature of getting the audit across the line has unfortunately detracted from the report itself. So I would like to just take some time to reflect on what is actually contained within the report. It's been a big year for Council and a successful year for Council. The Mayor and Chief Executive summarise well in their report at the front of the annual report. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any, although Tracy's probably more qualified to do so. And I'm happy to recommend on behalf of the Strategic Risk and Audit Committee, I'm happy to recommend the annual report for the year ended June 22 and the 2 associated letters of representation to be signed on behalf of Council by the Mayor and Chief Executive. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Van Oosten.
Just one question from me with regard to both the material matters and I'm just trying to remember terms that you've used, the unqualified emphasis of matter. Does that in any way put Hamilton City Council in a bad light, or call into question any of the substantial work that sits in that report?
No, I would say not. It is an unqualified opinion, so it's a clear opinion, except for the one emphasis of matter which relates to the Three Waters uncertainty. And as I said, all councils will be receiving that emphasis of matter because it has the potential to have such an impact on the financial statements. The Auditor General has requested that that emphasis of matter be put in all of the audit opinions for local government.
So we won't be sitting outside of any norms across the country at all?
No, we have managed to stay within the extended reporting timeframe of 31st of December. So great that we can get it across the line at this council meeting.
I think that's an important point. Thank you, Karen, for making that. And in the opinion, is there anything that can give members comfort that the auditors have taken some responsibility for the time or the delays that have been not of our making?
There's nothing per se in the opinion itself, and it wouldn't be appropriate to put it in the opinion. Clarence from Audit New Zealand did convey his apologies for the last moment nature of their service and the difficulties that had been experienced in the latter part of the audit. So he expressed that to the committee yesterday.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for your leadership on it too.
Thank you.
Further questions? I'll move that Maxine, you're just Chair of Finance, would you like to move? Okay, Councillor Maxine will move and I will second. We'll go into debate if there is any. Do you want us to debate first, or have you got anything to say?
Thank Kieran, certainly, for the leadership that you've shown through the final hours of this and getting it across the line, to be the liaison as well. But I think a great deal of the work and effort and last-minute work must thank Tracy and her team for the excellence that they produce every day, putting these reports and keeping our accounts in the most excellent way. There are those small errors, but they shouldn't in any way detract from the great work that happens every day at our council, and the commitment that Tracy's staff and all the staff and the pride that they take in producing the kind of work that leads to, I'm trying to think how many, more than 250 pages of reporting here. It becomes a public record and something that we are obliged to report on to not just to Parliament but to our citizens, and they can be proud of the work that has happened here in Hamilton and me also, so thank you.
Thank you to you and Bruce for the work that you consistently do through the independent strategic risk and audit role. And yes, this has been a little bit more complex than usual, the environment around the audit and the pressures on Audit New Zealand. So we recognise and appreciate their apology for the lateness of finishing this work off, but we also understand the factors that led to it, which were explained to us yesterday. But thank you for keeping us on track. We look forward to seeing you next year, and we hope that you have a very lovely Christmas holiday and some rest, and we'll see you for some quite big issues that will test the strategic risk part of our work next year. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
I've moved, Maxine moved. I seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Opposed? No. Thank you. Just a matter of procedure that I meant to do at the beginning but didn't. Just because it's the last meeting of the year, and we are going to talk about standing orders at some stage as a council. With your leave, I would like to restrict the debate to 2 minutes, because if we all debate every item, then potentially it's a long day for everyone. I'm sure we're past long day for now. So I move that we suspend the, and Deputy Mayor Angela seconds that we suspend the standing orders in relation to debate time to 2 minutes. And in addition, in terms of the items themselves, if we could please succinctly bring your 2 top questions to the table, and then we'll rotate. Now, if your questions are not answered, I will come back to you. But just for expediency and to let everyone to have their questions answered, I'm going to do that way today. If there is any objections, please sing out. No? Everyone's happy? Yes, right. Is this an objection?
I may run over 30 seconds.
Well, we give you 2 minutes to debate. And we know that you're very, very good with your use of language. You managed to say a lot in so few words. We appreciate that about you, Ryan. I know you can do it. He's not sure today. All right, thanks, Council. So I've moved. Councillor O'Leary has, Deputy Mayor O'Leary has seconded. All in favour? Opposed? Carried. Excellent. Thank you. So that brings us up to an item that really shouldn't take this that long, which is the temporary extension to alcohol bylaw for the Sevens. And come on up, Calvin. We have missed the strategic risk and assurance, safety and wellness. Oh, we'll come back to it, sorry. We're going to let our visitors go.
Good morning, Your Worship and councillors. Can I take the opportunity firstly to introduce Senior Sergeant Scott Miller. Scott is the Prevention Manager for Hamilton, and he's here in support of the report that's come before you today. The purpose of that report is to seek the approval of Council for a temporary extension to the approved alcohol ban area, which was created under the Alcohol Control Bylaw, in order to support policing efforts for the HSBC New Zealand Sevens event held on the 21st and 22nd of January next year. This is the 4th occasion on which a temporary extension to the alcohol ban has been sought by police, and it has been shown to be a valuable tool to aid them in reducing crime, disorderly behaviour and alcohol-related harm during the event. The only matter I'd like to draw Council's attention to is paragraph 14 on page 30, which outlines the requirements under the Local Government Act that Council must be satisfied about. That is that there is evidence that the area to which the bylaw applies has experienced a high level of crime or disorder that can be shown to have been caused or made worse by alcohol consumption, and that the bylaw as applied by the resolution is appropriate and proportionate in the light of the evidence and can be justified as a reasonable limitation on people's rights and freedoms. Other than that, the report can be taken as read, and we're happy to answer any questions.
And I'm happy to move it. Deputy Mayor Angela will second it and ask a question.
And just one question, just for clarification. With the alcohol ban, and I'm not sure, I'm sure Calvin, you can probably answer this anyway, but if not, please. Does that mean then that, like I know that it means if someone's drinking with a vessel in that area, then they can be seen to, but if it's in their car and it's unopened, is that also a breach of the ban?
Not if it's unopened and in their car, but if they were sitting there and started to pop the tops of the bottles, they would then have an issue.
Okay, and then if it's in the boot of the car, boots open, bottles, caps are taken off, but they're just standing there not drinking?
Breach.
Okay, all right,
Breach.
good. Just,
Can I just add, I guess, just around your concerns on that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not there to be the fun police, but,
No.
but certainly the higher intake and so forth of some outweigh the enjoyment for the
sure.
majority.
Yeah.
We do mitigate that, and I do put it specifically in the ops order in the sense of you've had some overseas tourists here today. if they were unaware of the ban and were spoken to, then our approach with that is to warn, in writing or what have you.
Yeah.
And so it's normally the first move is to try and,
Yeah,
I guess, just deal with it and move
yeah,
on.
no, oh,
Yep.
great, thank you.
Just a question for me, what you're doing this time for the sevens is what's been done and worked every time for the sevens, yeah?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Bidder.
Thank you, Mayor Southgate. How is this advertised so that people actually know about it?
There is a media campaign which will start running from early January. There will be letter drops to affected people in there, and there are big signs that go on the entrance to every street in the lead-in to the extended alcohol ban area.
Is that a cost to the council or does it go to the event?
The cost is, it's consumed within our existing operational budget for planning.
Thank you.
I presume that's very minimal since we've used the same signage prior.
Same signage after the 5 years, because we had 2 years in between, we've had to go for some fresh signage this year, but that's minimal cost.
Thank you very much. So it's been so moved and seconded. We will actually go to vote on the board, just because we're getting into the meaty items. It's easier to. Are we? Oh, before that, we could have gone to debate if we had any, sorry, but I just figured there probably wasn't. Is there any debate? No. Just to thank you for the good work that you do in that area. I'm sure it'll be a very big success again, the sevens. Last time. That's our sad face. We're waiting. Okay, we'll get that working for next time, please. All in favour, please raise your hands. Opposed? You got that, Amy? Guys? Okay, thank you. Okay, that brings us up onto the Three Waters reform update. Now, there's 2 items on the agenda, as I'm sure you're aware, and oh, we do. We did miss that. Which one? Was health and safety? Oh, okay, let's do that. Apologies. Dan, apologies. One of our most important issues. Just pop yourself to the side there, Andrew, and we'll let Dan do health and safety. Sorry. Oh, look, it's been a long year, folks. Yeah. Yep.
Marina, look, I'll take the report as read and happy to answer any questions regarding the track report that was presented yesterday at the Strategic Risk and Audit Committee.
Excellent. See, that was worth waiting for. Are there any questions? No questions. I'll move. Deputy Mayor Angela will second. And is there any debate? No? I'll just say a few words, which is thank you for the good work that you do in this area. This actually is, all jokes aside, one of the most important aspects of our work, for which as governors we are ultimately responsible. So we thank you and the team for the work you've done this year. And actually we wish all staff a very safe Christmas period, holiday period. Thanks, Dan.
Fantastic. Thank you.
We'll go to the board for the vote. We'll see if that works. Does it? No? I'm stuck. My thing won't go back to discussion either. All in favour, please raise your hands. That's unanimous. Thank you. Right, now we will go to the now we will go to the Three Waters item. Thank you. Now, what I was going to say on that one is that we have 2 items. One speaks to the better off, and one is just a general update. And this is the update at the moment. Thank you.
Kia ora, Mayor and Councillors. Just for the record, I am not COVID positive, just if you're wondering why I'm wearing a mask.
Oh, okay.
just-
Actually, that did not cross my mind. Right, no.
Okay.
That's bad breath, actually.
Yes, right. Thanks, Lance. I better get into this quick. That is a good start. Hey, look, so I'm going to take the update report as read, and I'm simply going to focus on a number of legislative aspects of the reform that have progressed since the report was prepared. So I'll just go through them in a structured way. So the first reference in the report is to the Water Services Entities Bill. So that legislative process has now been completed, and the Water Services Entity Bill is now an act, and it completed the Royal Assent process yesterday morning, and as at today, the 4 water services entities have been established. If I go to the second bill reference, which is the Water Services Legislation Bill. Now that's referred to in the report as the Water Services Entity Bill. The name's changed slightly, so the government has called it the Water Services Legislation Bill. This bill amends the Water Services Entities Act that was just recently passed. It covers the matters that are set out in paragraph 28 in your report, Diligent, page 37, and largely it's a technical bill. The first reading of that bill was completed yesterday, and the bill has now been referred to the Finance and Expenditure Committee with a requirement to report back to Parliament by the 25th of May. Yesterday afternoon, the Select Committee opened the submission period and has set a submission closing date of the 12th of February. And as a staff team, we've just started to review that bill. If I go to a third bill, the Economic Regulation and Consumer Protection Bill. So that bill proposes economic regulation and consumer protection measures for the water services sector to fall under the Commerce Commission. So I've just got sort of 5 bullet points that summarise the whole bill. So essentially that commission would be required to set and enforce minimum service codes. The commission would be required to apply a price quality requirement on entities, and they would place ceilings on pricing charges, revenue collected, and set a floor level for quality of service. The commission would also be required to set information disclosure and reporting requirements for entities, and would establish a dispute resolution service, which would be established and subject to regular reviews by the Commission. And a position of Water Services Commissioner would be established, and the Commission's board would review the nature of that water sector and the importance of Te Mana o Te Wai through that framework. Parliament completed the first reading of that bill yesterday also, and similarly have referred that also to the Finance and Expenditure Committee with the same report date back to Parliament, being 25th of May, and the same deadline for Select Committee submissions, which opened yesterday and will close on the 12th of February. So previously, Council made a formal submission on a discussion document on economic regulation and consumer protection. We've sent out a link on that as part of an executive update, and as staff we've simply commenced a review of that bill as well. The proposal moving forward is as staff will prepare submissions on each of the 2 bills, we'll come back to the next council meeting on the 2nd of February for debate, discussion and approvals, noting that ultimately those submissions are due on the 12th of February. So I'll pause there and happy to take questions or discussion.
I can't see the questions in front of me, so I'll be looking at and looking for your green light for questions. Are there any questions, please? There being none, let's look at the recommendation, which is actually in this instance just to receive the report. So I'll move that the report be received. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Van Oosten, thank you. We will now go into debate if there is any debate. I'm not going to debate this item in particular because we have an item on the Better Off funding shortly. I'll probably just reserve my comments to there. Is there any debate? But I reserve my right to reply should I need it. No, no debate? No debate. All right. I'd like to use the board, but I don't have it for the vote, so we'll have to do show of hands again. All in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Excellent, thank you. Now we'll go to the item on the Better Off funding package, please.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. So just as a reminder, Council was offered $58.61 million as a Better Off funding package to be delivered in 2 tranches. Tranche 1 is $14.6 million, which was available from 1 July 2022. The Tranche 2 is the balance up to the full $58.5 million, and that balance is available from 1 July 2024, so the start of the LTP. In June and July, Council considered or consulted with Hamiltonians following the introduction of the Water Services Entity Bill, and on the 29th of June, Council resolved that it would not approve the Tranche 1 Better Off funding until that consultation was finished and there was clarity over 3 financial issues. So the first of those issues was, 1, clear direction on the extent and financial impact of the No Worse Off funding, and we have no further information or progress on that item. 2, clear understanding of all transitional costs and associated funding. So that has been resolved, we are funded. And 3, clarity of the level of debt to be transferred to the water entity. Discussions on that have been opened by DIA, but it's not resolved. On the 18th of August 22, Council then resolved to seek an extension of time or a waiver from NTU for consideration of Better Off. And subsequently, Council was granted an extension to the 28th of February for decision making. The Better Off can be used for new projects, can be used to accelerate existing projects in the LTP, it can be used to enhance existing projects in the LTP. But in the briefing last week, there was a question around Better Off and whether it could be used to fund existing LTP projects where those projects might no longer be able to proceed due to the current economic environment. Now, discussions with the IEA have confirmed that that approach is acceptable to them. Decisions now required on Better Off in order to prepare any project applications in time for the next council meeting on the 2nd of February and complete this first stage of the application process by the due date of 28 February. Due to the increased costs of finance and construction cost escalation pressures, staff recommend option 1, which is to secure tranche 1, as this would deliver the most value for money for Hamiltonians. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Are there? Oh yes, there are. Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Chair. Possibly you can answer this, Andrew, or governance, but the motion today to approve proceeding, if it fails, have you got a mandate from elected members to proceed, or is it all hinge on this motion?
It hinges on this motion.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Andrew, does what's the difference between option 3, which would defer, I guess, the funding until the long-term plan process, and just simply declining this tranche by not pursuing any of the options here?
So for clarity, all 3 options are based on approving or accepting the Better Off.
Yeah.
So option 1 is accept and apply for the tranche 1 projects now in time for the due date. Option 3 is approve but leave everything to the LTP process.
Right.
So it's essentially approve but file a nil project return and pick it all up in the LTP. You can't pick it up before the LTP, it gets fully cast out to the LTP period. And option 2 is the hybrid, put some projects up but not the full tranche 1 allocation.
Okay.
That's the difference between the 3 options.
So you're still signing an agreement of some kind, but just deferring the spending?
All 3 options would have council accepting Better Off.
And option 3 will negate your opportunity to use any of the tranche one money in the annual plan.
There's, for the second tranche of funding, well, I mean, there's no, so I guess if we decline it now, that's it. There's just, you lose your opportunity to accept this funding at all, or what, and I guess, yeah, what does that look like?
A little difficult to answer, because if you don't accept Better Off now, you don't have a contract.
Yeah.
And you would be reliant on any future government. Yeah, so I wouldn't want to go on record saying you would lose the funding entirely. You could well do, but it becomes political at that point around the national election and what comes out of that process.
Yes, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Oh, Councillor Van Oosten, you had a question here. Yeah, you go. It's all right. Off you go.
Andrew, your paper talks about the great majority of councils signing up to the Better Off funding proposal. I guess if we decline it, we'd be sitting outside of the norms and potentially missing out on any of the funding. I get that. But by signing up to it, do we all of a sudden have to change any of the kind of the behaviours or the way we've been working with the DIA and others in providing information about Hamilton and assisting the movement through the transition period?
Good question. So the agreement does have the city working collaboratively with the DIA on transition. But what I would say to that is you have a law that requires that and much more now. So in that respect, you know, you've got the obligations regardless of whether you sign in that regard, in terms of working with DIA. In terms of, perhaps I call it, you know, having a political voice on reform, the agreement or the advice notes that DIA have published with the agreement suggest that they would not constrain the councils politically in having, you know, a voice on reform or views that might be contrary. So that statement's not in the agreement, but it's in the advice material that's been attached to today's report.
And we have a letter from Heather Schotter, who's the CEO of the transition unit, to that effect. So we've got it in writing, that, and it basically says the key line is we acknowledge the importance of councils being able to independently express their views on the reform program. The funding agreement for the Better Off package does not preclude councils from doing this.
Yep. In terms of your comment or question around being an outlier, Hamilton City can obviously choose to do whatever it wishes, it's council's decision, but my understanding is that a small number of councils applied for an extension to Christmas, so we don't know what their decisions are, but when I last spoke to DIA, only one council in New Zealand has declined. An entity B, so all of Waikato, Bay of Plenty and half of Manawatu, the 22 councils, Hamilton City is the only council yet to make a resolution. All other 21 have resolved to proceed. They may not have applied yet, but they've resolved to proceed.
That's really helpful information, and I guess on that basis I'd like to move, Chair, that we accept the staff recommendation on page 41, option 1. Is that, am I on the right page? Yeah.
Sarah?
Yep.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Thank you. Sorry, let's get to the question. Deputy Mayor Angela.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. Just a couple of questions. Lance, just so I heard you correctly, so that you're saying that the council can still continue to hold a position that we are formally opposed to the Three Waters reform as it stands, but we can, without any conditions, accept tranche 1 and 2.
Correct. So we could still have our opinion around the CCO model, you know, that we discussed in past resolutions on previously.
Yeah.
So they're not basically hamstringing council by having an opinion.
Okay. And just on the tranche 1 and tranche 2 then, Andrew, so just to be clear, both tranches are able to be used for operating as well, for OPEX as well as CAPEX?
Yes,
Yeah.
and may I enhance the Chief Executive comment just to give you some comfort?
Yeah.
So on page 106 in Diligent, at the top, so that's a page from a DIA
Yes,
FAQ. So
yes, I
FAQ
read those,
13, if a council participates,
Yeah.
will this allow the council to be opposed to the reform? And then their response is on the right. I won't read it all,
Yes.
but essentially is saying yes.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And is there, I couldn't find anything in the documents and the extra information, thank you for sending that through. Are there any conditions whatsoever, other than the criteria for what the money is to be spent on, that would stop us or that would inhibit us choosing all operational projects? Or is there something in there that says we have to have a split of CAPEX and OPEX? Where I'm going with that is because OPEX, of course, comes from, the ratepayer normally pays OPEX, so that's a direct benefit if we compile our list with more operational stuff to deliver the well-beings.
So I'll just take a step back first.
Yeah.
Because you talked about signing up for tranche 1 and 2. This locks in tranche 1.
Yes, I know that,
The
yeah.
framework and contract for tranche 2 is to come.
Yeah,
But it does lock in the better off overall.
yeah,
In terms of your specific question around OPEX, CAPEX, you're free to do whatever you want. There is
Okay.
no constraint around the proportion of CAPEX, OPEX. You could have 100% OPEX, you could have 100% CAPEX, or anywhere in the middle. The only requirements that you have as a council is to support the government objectives that are set out on page 42 in Diligent, which is, you know, supporting communities to transition to a sustainable, low-carbon economy, et cetera, et cetera. I won't read them all, but they're set out in under paragraph 8 on page 42.
yeah.
So the outcomes constraints,
Yeah.
not the colour of money constraints.
Yeah, so given we are going to be facing a significant deficit in our operating budget, will staff take that in consideration when you go away and compile a list? Will that
Correct.
be one of the principles?
And that's what we discussed at the annual plan workshop the other day, and that's my recommendation, that we should seriously look at that.
Okay.
Obviously, it's up to elected members what you do.
Yeah.
That's our recommendation.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. And just one last question, in terms, so this deals with the better off funding, in terms of the transitional costs, because that's the next big thing we're going to have to tackle, right? Do we have any idea of when that process is going to hit us? And is that also going to be a government grant in some form, and that becomes the no worse off, right? So that's the next project that we have to.
There's three funds, and they've got these nice, interesting labels. So we're talking about the better off. There's also a transition fund. So we are funded for transition tasks.
We are, yeah.
And so when they come and ask for information from us, we recover those costs fully, whether they're staff time or we bring in assistants, so that we're not disadvantaged at all in terms of the work that we're going through at the moment. Fully recoverable. In fact, we've drawn down all costs to date. And then the third bucket is called the no worse off. We have not had any guideline information on the no worse off, and that's a discussion to come once we start understanding what that looks like.
Okay.
And that relates to the longer term stranded overheads.
Yeah. That was all, but can I just say it would have been nice to have Stephen up there, because look at his jacket. Stephen, you just win the prize today. That's epic. It's got to be seen. got to be seen on camera, that one.
We'll grab a photo in the tea break. Councillor Taylor.
Mayor Southgate. Andrew, just following on from that last discussion about information that we haven't quite got yet.
Yeah.
So we, as a council, said, okay, we asked to put off the decision
Yep.
on this funding until we had answers on some issues. We felt it was irresponsible to go ahead because we didn't have answers. And that was on the No Worse Off funding,
Yes,
which we still haven't got answers on.
correct.
And that was on the debt levels.
Correct.
Can you just flesh that out? We wanted to know.
So we as a council, we wanted to know, have a lot more specificity around the nature and extent of debt transfer off our books onto the entity books. So those, we do not have an answer to those questions, but what has happened is the DIA have opened up an active line of dialogue in relation to that debt matter, and it's a fairly early conversation, but it has started.
Okay. So so given that we as a councillors, I think, felt it was irresponsible to proceed until we had answers to protect our community, you guys are recommending we go ahead with this despite us not having 2 out of 3 of the answers that we were after.
Yes, we are, and because it's now free money, because the law compels council now to commit to this reform, and this reform is simply going to happen because of that new law that's just been passed. And so my advice, given the certainty now around the law, we'll continue to work through those 3 matters because they're critical matters, don't get me wrong, but we only have an extension in terms of better off to the 28th of Feb. And it's a decision for council to make. It's not my decision, but if you're going to take it, we need time as staff to work up those projects to hit those February deadlines. And so today is really a last chance for a decision, unless you're going for option 3, because that's easy. There's no projects to the LTP.
Okay. So we're kind of being pushed into. So you're just talking about the number of councils around the country who have said yes to this. Do you have that information?
Yes, yes we do. We've got the resolutions from every council in Entity B.
Yeah.
And then I've only got a discussion for the rest of New Zealand with DIA. And remember, as I said, some other councils sought an extension, and most extensions terminate at Christmas. So I don't know where those councils are at. But in the discussion I had with DIA, they said, as at the date of that discussion, 1 council had declined, but others are yet to determine their position.
In Entity B or nationally?
Oh, nationally.
Okay.
In Entity B, every other council is resolved to proceed.
And nationally, there are still a number of councils yet to decide?
Yeah, the ones that secured an extension, and sorry, I don't have that number. Was it 6 or 8? I can't remember. Sorry, but there were a small number of councils that sought an extension, so they're still yet to reach that date. So I don't know where they'll go with their decision making. But 1 has said no.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Chair.
No. In which case, we will move into the debate phase. Councillor Van Oosten, you are the mover, so you get to speak first and then you have a right of reply.
Within the 2 minutes, I think Andrew mentioned right at the last that this is free money. What's changed between now and the last time we had a discussion about the Better Off funding is that the law compels us to comply, to work with the entity and DIA to be able to set this up. What would be wrong for us to do is to turn it away. This is an opportunity for Hamiltonians to take account of the headwinds that are heading for us as our economic times have become really tight. It would be negligent of us to do anything but to accept this tranche one money at this time. Options other than option one put at risk the full value of those funds, and that's something that I, as a chair of the Finance Committee, cannot tolerate, and I know that there will be the opportunity soon for us to be able to have a discussion about what goes into the application of those funds. But I take great heart from our Chief Executive's words today at the meeting that all matters can be, both operational and CAPEX can be considered for this funding, and I think we have an obligation and a duty to Hamiltonians to accept it. Kia ora and thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bidder.
Thank you, Mayor Southgate. I'm going to take my hat off for this. A year into the process, and we've been told about a multi-layer management structure to take ownership of the assets, but nothing about technical solutions to actually solve the real problems. As a result, I have not been given any confidence that there will be a benefit to our citizens. That leaves us with a contract that essentially states if we decide not to look after our citizens, we get $15 million, and that is essentially a bribe. The fact that the law has passed and we don't have a choice anymore doesn't change that fact. The pragmatic response, as Councillor Maxine said, is to take the money, and I understand that. We can do a lot of good with it. But the ethical response is to refuse it. It sets a terrible precedence for government behaviour in the future, and this process is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bidder. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Ms Southgate. Yeah, I'm not going to support this today. I don't support the whole principle behind the so-called better off funding, and I don't think our council should participate in Andrew's right, what really amounts to a bribe. And we sought an extension on this because there are critical issues that we needed answers to on behalf of our community, and we haven't got those answers still. And now we're just being steamrolled to go ahead with it anyway. It's becoming clear to me that, you know, Three Waters, I think, is just a house of cards which is going to fall down. It's going to go down with this government at the next election. And I think the better off funding is really just a feverish kind of symptom of that whole thing. But we should stay away from it. The way to respond to a bribe is to stick to your principles. Don't compromise them because you need the money, or more accurately, you want the money. I have no desire to be a pawn in the government's ill-fated game on this. In less than a year, we'll have a national, I'm almost certain we'll have a National Act coalition. We're not going to get the lion's share of that money anyway, because it will be repealed, this legislation, and all of the silly machinery that goes with it. National Party local government spokesman Simon Watts said the next 12 months will be unsettling and challenging, but be forewarned, National will repeal this bill, undo the other statutory amendments and dissolve any obligations created by this bill in regards to employment, funding and financing. And those of you who say, well, we'll still take the 14.6 million because that'll be handy. Two messages. We don't need that money, we want it. What a marvellous opportunity for those people sitting around this table to show some restraint over the next 6 months heading into the annual plan. We know what things are like out in the community. It's time for austerity, folks. And secondly, do you want us to represent an organisation that has some standing or dignity? The last 3 years has seen local government in this country crumble and be dictated to by central government. We've been led by the nose. And we wonder why central government doesn't rate local government.
We need to wrap up. Last sentence. Thank you.
So let's stop perpetuating that by taking this bribe. If you want local government to be treated with a bit of class, start acting with a bit of principle. And let's show a bit of backbone here, because we know what's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Deputy Mayor Anschluss next, please.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. Look, given we have heard that we can freely take $58 million grant and still maintain our principles and our position against the Three Waters reform, I think it would be irresponsible for us not to. We've heard from the CEO today that, and from staff, that actually we could take the $58 million off our rates bill, off our ratepayers. We could use all of that $58 million on operational projects. That, to me, is the principle we should be looking forward with. We don't need this money, but our ratepayers do. The Three Waters is in our legislation. It is now law. Now's not the time to be principled. Now's the time to get the very best outcome that we can for the ratepayer. That's the principle that we're elected to deliver. And that's why I will be supporting this today. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Receiving this funding does not change the council's position on Three Waters, and we all have been unhappy with what's been proposed. But at a time when we're facing significant financial challenges and facing down a large operating deficit, this is an opportunity to reduce the burden for ratepayers and continue delivering what we've already agreed to in our long-term plan. It may also give us the opportunity to consider delivering some of what the strategies we've developed with the community, like the climate change strategy. That will be up for us to decide next year if we accept this. But by declining the funding today, there is a real risk, a very real likelihood that we lose the opportunity to secure this funding at all. There will be no legal obligation for the DIA to pay this funding to the council, and likely if things change next political term, it will be obliterated, most likely. Declining the funding is an expensive middle finger to central government, and it seems like a pretty futile gesture given that the key legislation is in place, the entities have been set up, and this government is clearly intent on forging ahead. I struggle to see how declining this funding is in the interests of Hamilton ratepayers. The alternative? What is the alternative? That we either A, decrease the services that our Hamiltonians enjoy and value, and just think of what those services might be, that will have a real impact on people's lives, or that we increase rates even further to deal with this deficit that we're facing. To those declining this, are you going to cost ratepayers nearly $15 million for the sake of making a political statement? That's my debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor. No, sorry, Councillor Hamilton. Apologies.
Fruit of the poisonous tree. It's often a term used in legal expressions, but this is what this feels like. Of course, government will say we can hold an opposing view. They don't care what we think, and that's been clear. This is a law which has been foisted upon us. I started the process in good faith over a year ago because we all appreciated the need for long-term sustainable reforms on a regional and national level. The trouble, though, has been all about the process. No meaningful feedback from any of the councils has been implemented, and that's from the Waters team that know this business implicitly and intimately. Some of you may be aware this council completely rejected the bill only a few months ago. It has created racial tensions over water, the most basic right of any human. It has created tensions over fairness and generational financial contribution and asset ownership. It has created tensions and uncertainty around accountability, fair shareholder value and representation. It's created uncertainty and angst for councils and the development community around growth challenges, including and especially ours, the fastest growing region in Aotearoa. But here is the kicker. Not only is this being done to us, but there is this last remaining bastion of hope, the Better Off Fund, the potentially only saving grace in this whole debacle that supposedly eases the pain of this asset stripping process. The government could say, hey, our execution hasn't been great, and we know this has been a bit like swallowing a dead rat, but here's some money to help you in the scheme of things. But no, it comes with conditions. It's not free money. Free money doesn't come with strings. The most sinister of all these conditions is the one that says you must work collaboratively with the process that you rejected. Not only did we do this to you, but now, to get this money, you have to pretend you enjoy it as well. Well, government, you can keep your callous bribe. On behalf of the thousands that voted for me, I reject it. Yes, it is tempting to throw away our principles and capitulate, but I won't be signing up to receive this fruit of the poisonous tree.
Thank you. Any further debate? I might make a few points. I think it has already been well said by a number of others. We've been clear in our opposition to the four entity model. We remain opposed to the four entity model. We were clear that we preferred a CCO. We remain committed to a CCO. The thing that has changed, and we've got the chance to continue to push our views onto government and make sure we get the very best for Hamilton. What's changed is this is now law. This is law. And so we are going to have to transition whether we wanted to or not. For me, taking this funding is a no-brainer. We do have the option to decline the funding, but I feel like I have the responsibility to do the best for the ratepayers. And right now, taking that money and applying it to the burden on ratepayers, to ease the burden on ratepayers, seems the right thing to me. As Sarah very well put, it can assist us the funding can assist us with some projects that we know we need to fund. Housing needs, climate challenges, community work. It can also take, as Angela has pointed out, the pressure off our ratepayer and help us even balance our books, which just seems to be getting further away. And all of these are things that are very, very important to me. Yes, we can try and hold back the tide and further attempted protest, but I don't think it's going to work, so it seems pointless to me. What we need to do today is to strive for the people that we represent and get the very best deal. That means taking this money today and applying it wisely. It also means continuing to be a strong voice in Wellington as further changes roll down the line. And what happens in the next elections happens in the next elections, and we deal with it at that time. So I'm going to support the motion today. Thank you. Any further debate? Right of reply then, Maxine?
I think
Okay.
points are well made.
And apologies, I can't vote on the board because we're having a little techno glitch. So we are going to do it by show of hands. So all in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Good process.
And sorry, Louise, you were all right? You didn't have anything to add? No? Cool. Sorry, I keep forgetting you're there. Apologies. Yeah, she is.
That's okay.
Yes.
Zoom mixed all around, so I think I've got you back, but I'm good.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, so there is the recommendation.
Hands, please.
Show of hands. It's mine, sorry. All in favour, please raise your hand.
Those dissenting? The motion is carried, noting that Councillor Donovan, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Naidu-Ralph and Councillor Biden are dissenting.
Cool. Thank you. Councillors, we're going to have a tea break, fix the technical glitches and just have a stretch legs. We'll come back in 1/4 of an hour.